Hey guys, welcome back to another fishing tip video here on Andrew Upshaw Fishing. Today's video is a little secret tip that's going to help you put more fish in the boat this year's spawn. It's definitely one of those secret things that I've been doing for quite some time. Got a couple new baits that we can talk about to even help you catch even more bass. In the meantime, drop down in that right hand corner, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And guys, I just want to say one thing real quick. We're nearing 15,000 subscribers. That's right, 15,000. It might not sound like much to some of you when you look at guys like Scott Martin's got 500,000. You know, all these guys have gigantic numbers of subscribers. We've been doing this just over 1 year, and guys, I'm so proud of that. Like, I've worked so hard to try to bring you the very best content that I can, and y'all are definitely showing up and showing out for me, and I can't thank you guys enough. It's definitely extremely humbling to know that I have y'all support and y'all like watching my videos. So again, thank you for that, and thank you for the support. On a side note, I'm here at the Bassmaster Open for the first event of the year. I got some new videos going to be dropping here pretty quick for the Open. Our practice and travel vlog, the day 1, day 2 footage. Hadn't fished the tournament yet, so I'm not really sure how it's going to go. Practice has been kind of tough for me, but I have a couple of things figured out, so hopefully those line up to be really good winners in the tournament. In the meantime, let's get this video started right after this. There we go. That's a nice one. He knocked slack in the line. He hit that thing so hard. I haven't even seen this fish yet. Oh, it's a good one. Alright. Came off that lay down and just boom, just knocked complete slack in the line. That is the kind of bite that you're looking for when throwing that Ned rig for sure. I mean, he's got it choked. I'm gonna have to grab him. Oh, come here, come here, come here. There we go. Wow, there we go. That's a nice one there, guys. Look how far down he has that Ned Crawl. Just a nice bass. This is a female here. You can tell this is a female. Look at that belly, just big old blown out belly there. I want to explain to you one thing about fishing this Ned rig. Let's get this fish back though, get it back in the water, and I'm gonna tell you a little bit about it. Alright guys, today's fishing tip is centered around one of my favorite finesse fishing rigs out there, the Ned rig. Now this isn't your typical Ned rig. I don't even know what I would really call this. I'd call it like maybe an atypical at Ned rig, abnormal Ned rigging. There's a lot of different titles that I can give this. And what I mean by this is I'm not using traditional Ned rig plastics. I'm not going to just use your TRDs, your Ned Ochos, and your stick bait type Ned baits. I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to talk to you about when and where to throw abnormal Ned rig baits. So first off, if you don't know what a Ned rig is, a Ned rig is probably one of, if not the hottest bait out there right now. It consists of a very small 2.5 to 3 inch solid stick bait with a stand-up style head. Well, as you can see here, I have this thing rigged extremely strange. So I'm going to re-hook this, and I'm going to show you exactly, first off, I'm going to show you exactly how to hook up your Ned rig. So this is just your standard Ned Ocho and your Striking Tour grade Ned head. So all you do traditionally is hook it just like that, and that's how it goes onto the jig head. So just like that. So it has an open hook, an open concept, so whenever you're hooking those fish, all you gotta do is lean into them. Well, over the last couple of years, I've been experimenting a lot with Ned rigs. So it's definitely one of those type of baits that I like to fish, but everybody started doing it, and rightfully so. It catches a ton of fish. Well, when everybody starts doing something, it doesn't mean you need to put it down. It just means you need to adjust it slightly. So I figured out like 3 different soft plastics that maximize my bites even when everybody's out there throwing a Ned rig. So the first one I'm going to talk about is absolutely abnormal when it comes to Ned rigging. It's a swim bait. Now you would ask, why would you throw a swim bait on a Ned rig? And my simple yet complicated answer to that is fish and bass especially eat shad all the time. So whenever I'm throwing a Ned rig, you can actually use the exact same jig head that you would use on your Ned rig and put a swim bait on it. But you're not always going to rig it the same way. So this has become one of my very favorite techniques, especially around flooded timber. So one of my favorite things to do is to get a weedless Ned head and to rig it weedless. Well, we aren't always in that situation where we have the right jig heads. So one way to do that is you can actually rig this bait weedless without a weed guard. So what you do is you go in about 1/4 inch, you push the bait up over the barb, you twist your bait, and you rehook the plastic just like that. So as you can see, you can actually swim this thing through all the kind of timber, brush, stuff like that, and you'll catch a lot of fish swimming that little Rage swimmer just like that. But first and foremost, the very best way to do this is to rig it completely weedless, or rig it standard where you put it straight up on the jig head. What I found when it comes to the really small Rage swimmers like the 2.75 or even a Kitech, a 2.8 Kitech, the Ned heads actually work better as swim bait heads than an actual swim bait head. So the only other swim bait head that works really good is that I think Matt Steffen makes it. It's the guppy head, and I use it especially if I'm throwing a heavier one like 1/4 ounce. But when I'm throwing a lightweight, so like an 1/8 ounce, a 3/16, I'm actually going with the Ned head because it has the perfect hook gap for the Rage swimmer. So just like I fish a Ned Ocho on the bottom, I'll actually cast the swim bait out and drag it. And it's kind of like a sweeping action. So I'll reel and I'll drag, reel and drag. And I want that thing deflecting off the bottom. In the spawn, especially on lakes like Beaver Lake, Table Rock, you can throw that little 2.75 inch Rage swimmer on a Ned head and you're going to see a lot of really good results. Now, if I'm on a lake where maybe there's a lot of crawfish or a lot of bluegill, fish are spawning, I know for a fact they're spawning, but they're not quite eating that Rage swimmer. This is far and beyond become one of my favorite baits, and I was actually doing it before with the baby Rage Crawl, and I was cutting it down a little bit. Well, this year Strike King came out with the new Ned Crawl. I was actually lucky enough to go shoot a show on the Ned Crawl here just recently, just the other day, and guys, this thing is just nasty. So just like before, there's two ways to rig this. I actually prefer to rig it weedless, completely weedless, without a weed guard jig head. I just wanted to rig it regular weedless. So I'm going to turn it and put it just like that. So I'm actually rigging it very similar to like a shaky head. So you ask, why would you throw this in comparison to, let's say, a Ned Ocho? Well, if I'm in a lake, especially a Highland Reservoir or a lake like Lake Hartwell, Lanier, you know, and everybody out there is throwing TRDs and Ochos and those little Ned Rig stickworms, and that's everybody's throwing it. Well, that's when I like to switch it up. That's when I like to go to like the Ned Crawl and a couple other baits and actually drag that thing through the bed, especially in lakes where the fish are spawning deeper. So I'll give you a perfect example. Smith Lake. A lot of times those spotted bass will spawn in like 5, 6, 7 foot of water. They're hard to see. You can't physically sight fish them. That's when I'm going to pull out a little Ned Crawl and throw it through their bed. The thing is that crawl type plastic, you know, if you've ever sight fished, if you've ever fished for a fish on a bed, it seems like you always want a bait that has just a little bit of action. It doesn't have to have a lot of action, but just a little bit of action. It has to have a little bit of realistic action when you're sitting there shaking it on the bottom. The bad thing is about a stickworm, whether it's a Cinco, an Ocho, a Ned Ocho, a TRD, it's just kind of like just sitting in there. It's just not going to have much action. And if everybody in the tournament or everybody on the water is throwing that bait, you kind of have to switch it up. And that's when I go that Ned Crawl. So many times, especially early in the spring, on some of these deep, clear lakes, the crawfish are really small. And this also imitates a bluegill really well. But you can fish this thing in the middle of trees. As you see here, I'm on a place here in Oklahoma, and I'm fishing for bedding fish that you absolutely can't see. They're too deep, and I'm dragging this little Ned Crawl through their beds, and they're absolutely demolishing it. One more plastic that absolutely has become a favorite of mine as well, and it's kind of situational, but it definitely has its place, is the new Ned Bug. This new Ned Bug, Rage Ned Bug, although similar to the Ned Crawl, has a little bit less action. It's a little bit more subtle. It'll remind you of the same appendages that you get on like a Rage Bug. So the tails are very, very similar in size and shape. So it has that really subtle shimmy on the bottom. You go out to a place like Lake Mead, really tough fishery. That's when your Rage Bug is gonna absolutely, that little Ned Bug is absolutely gonna shine. You can actually detach these little side appendages, and you can swim this thing. So unlike the Rage Ned Crawl that I fish on the bottom through the beds, this is a little secret technique that I've been doing for a few years now. So what I do is I'll take that little Rage Bug and I'll throw it out there. I'll let it go to the bottom. Okay, so I flip it out there and let it go to the bottom. I make a long cast, and this is where it gets interesting. I'll actually put it on a little bit heavier Ned head. I'll put on like a 3/16 ounce tour grade Ned head, and I'm going to reel it across the bottom just like a biffle head. So if you've ever fished a biffle head in your life, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Well, what a biffle head is, it's a swing style head, and when Tommy Biffle and the guys at Jean LaRue designed it, you just cast it out there, you let it go to the bottom, you just reel it in. Just reel. And it was like a soft plastic crankbait. Well, what I did is I started doing the exact same thing with that Ned Bug, that little Rage Ned Bug, on a 3/16 ounce Ned head, and doing the exact same thing. So what I'll do is I'll cast that thing out there, and I just want to keep bottom contact with that bait. And guys, it looks just like a crawfish scurrying across the bottom, and it's a very finesse version of basically throwing a biffle head. And you just mark my words, just go out there and try it. If you live on a place, there's a rocky type place that maybe doesn't have as much cover, maybe it's just some rock or something like that, go try that out. If you're worried about hanging up, get the Weedless jig head model of it, and it'll keep you from snagging up. But you're going to be shocked how many bass you actually catch when it comes to reeling that Rage Bug on the bottom. Like, I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, if you look at it, guys, when this thing's swimming across the bottom, that flat head, what it does is it'll actually deflect off rock. So every time you reel it, like that flat head might catch a corner, and it's making this thing dart across the bottom. It looks extremely, extremely realistic, and definitely become one of my favorite baits for throwing a Ned rig. So when it comes to gear for my Ned rig, especially one that I might rig weedless or might not, I've actually kind of adjusted my rod series to match it really well. This is just a 7-foot medium action Pro TI rod. This is a spinning rod, obviously. It's one that I've been using for some time now. It's definitely become one of my favorites, and I'm going to tell you why. You know, this is a more of an expensive rod. I think this is the highest end rod that Lew's makes. And if you know me, if you've watched any of my videos, I don't always just splurge for the highest end equipment. But when it comes to spinning rods and it comes to sensitivity and the need for sensitivity, I will splurge for a higher end rod and get one that I have way more sensitivity. I can feel those bites further out on a lot slack line and things like that. So it makes a huge difference. Line though, I go 10-pound braid, the tour grade braid. I like yellow because I can see it from a long ways off. So if my line jumps or something like that, I can see it. And I've started varying up my leaders a little bit. So if I'm reeling that Rage Bug on the bottom, on the Ned head, I'll actually go to 10-pound test, because it kind of freaks me out. You're rubbing that thing against rocks the entire time, so you don't want to take that chance on breaking off. Otherwise, I'm using 8-pound tour grade fluorocarbon. I just don't like going less than 8 anymore. I did catch them at Cherokee on 6, but the conditions call for it. I did break off some fish that day, but sometimes you just got to go really light. I mean, I've caught one of my best friends, Zach, that plays Call of Duty with me. He used to travel with me on FLW. I'll call him and I'll be like, hey man, I'm catching them on 5 and 4-pound tests. And I actually weighed in 2 bass at the Forestwood Cup on 4-pound test. And that was a feat in itself, and both of them were pretty good ones. But real quick, I do want to talk to you about color. When it comes to choosing colors for these Ned plastics, I think the more basic you keep it, the better. In this box, I have my Ned Ochos. Here's 6 colors that I carry with me literally everywhere I go. This box gets reloaded about 4 to 5 times a year because I do use just about every single color in here. These are just, like I said, these are just Ned Ochos. These aren't the Ned Crawl, the Rage Swimmer. The Rage Swimmer, I literally throw 2 colors. I throw the Electric Shad and I throw Ghost Shad. These are literally the only 2 colors I throw. And I actually will match my colors of Rage Bug and Rage Ned Crawl, really similar color selection as I would the Ocho. So this is a transparent shad color. This is one of my favorites. This is more of a clear water situation. If the fish are eating shad, I won't use the Creature or the Ned Crawl in this color because I really, there's no reason to. I'm trying to imitate a bluegill. I'm trying to imitate a crawfish, and quite frankly, crawfish aren't that color. So on the case of the Ned Crawl and the Ned Bug, I'll throw watermelon red. I'll throw blue crawl, which is that kind of like a blue flash green pumpkin. Obviously, I'll throw green pumpkin, and I'll throw a darker color like red bug or something like that. One of my favorite colors is obviously Morning Dawn, a pink worm. You can't go wrong with pink. And red bug, believe it or not, red bug is definitely one of my favorite Ned bait colors. Red bug absolutely works all the time. It's one of those things that I keep in my tackle box day in and day out, especially on lakes like Rayburn. So, quick story for you. On Rayburn, I went out there with Todd Castledine, and we were out fishing, and I was prototyping the tour grade weedless Ned heads that we had. And I took out the Ned Ocho, and I was actually throwing it on Rayburn, fishing the grass with that weedless head, and caught so many fish. It was ridiculous. On a place that you would absolutely not expect to catch them on a Ned rig, you'd be shocked how many bass you can catch on Ned rig anywhere and everywhere you go. One of my fondest memories is fishing Lake Hartwell, and one of the very first times I ever even threw the baby Rage Crawl on the Ned rig was there on bedding fish, and that's how I was actually catching them. And everybody knew I was throwing a Ned rig, but they thought I was throwing like a Ned little Ocho or a little cut-off Cinco or something like that, but I was actually throwing a crawl. That crawl is killer. I mean, you look at some of the biggest weights ever caught in bass history have been caught on little baby crawls on beds, and to me, there's not a better way to fish a baby crawl than an open hook Ned rig where you can flip it in there and catch them real easy. So guys, if you like this video, make sure you drop a like on it. Drop a comment. What maybe is your favorite obscure Ned rig bait? Let me know what it is below, and I'll give it a shot, and I'll try it out. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for all your support again. I hope you learned how to catch them on some obscure Ned rig baits, and maybe these techniques will help put more fish in the boat for you next time you're on the water. See you on the next video, guys.